Welcome to this special episode of Planet Earth. Today's topic will be energy transition in Europe and Italy. And welcome our guests. We have David Govoni, who is the president of the European Federation of Geologists. Good evening. Glenn Berridge, who is the executive director of the European Federation of Geologists. Good evening, and Monia Procesi. She is a permanent researcher of the Italian Institute of Geology and Volcanology. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
So, David, I'd like to start with you. So, climate change has led us to a point of no return, and the role of organizations that work in these fields of environment is becoming more and more important. So the European Federation of Geologists is an organization that works in this field. So what the European Federation of Geologists represent, what does it represent, and how does the organization work in order to aware institutions and citizens of this point of no return? Thank you.
European Federation of Geologists is a professional organization grouping 28 national associations in different countries of geographical Europe. European Federation of Geologists represents in total over 45,000 individual professionals across Europe. I think it's very relevant that we are representing individual professional, because this professional works as individual transversally in different fields of geology and in different private and public organizations, from academy, industry, public authorities, and so on. This is very important because make it particularly influential when we come to the topics that were mentioned before by you. Our members joined meetings, are part of a panel of experts, and work in groups influencing decision making. And this process is is a continual improvement process where the members are particularly incisive and significant.
Thank you, David. So, Glenn, now I bring a question to you. So, climate change posed a lot of environmental challenges, but I'd like to focus on geological challenges. So, what are some of the main geological challenges the European Federation of Geologists is facing right now?
Well, you should say that there's always two sides to the challenges we face. So one side are hazards, of which climate change is one. But we've seen recently, obviously, we still have a huge amount to worry about in terms of earthquake risk, volcanoes, and they will always be there and they will surprise us too. I think your question was leading more to, say, the energy transition. In that case, quite honestly, I think the greatest issue we have is in communicating the importance of geology to this story. And there's two sides to it in terms of resources. There's the critical minerals we're going to require, and then there is geoenergy. And the good news is we've got plenty of solutions, but we need to learn to doing more of this, to explain, and to be able to reach out not to our own community so much as the public, policymakers, decision makers, the media, and tell the story, because we will not be able to implement these changes, these very positive changes for society, unless we can explain the value of these solutions. I meet a lot of people who are very concerned, even desperate about where we find ourselves. With each COP, we find that the ambition has to become greater and greater. And in fact, we have many of the solutions that are required, but we need to coordinate basically the nexus of policy making, investment, and these solutions. And we also need a talent pipeline, and we need geologists to be coming through, people to be passionate, excited, be the kind of people who are going to design these solutions alongside our colleagues, the engineers. And we can do this, but we need to be able to explain the realities of this to society. There's going to be some tough choices, but we can do this.
Thank you. So now, Mania, let's bring in this interview an Italian perspective. So energy transition has a lot of topics, but there's one topic about raw materials and critical raw materials that gained attention in Italy too. For example, in 2021, Ministry launched this table for critical raw materials and promoted also membership in European Raw Materials Alliance. So I'd like to ask you to have this Italian perspective. Is the INGV working on this topic and actually how is it carrying out these issues?
The INGV is working on this topic, but raw and critical material research is not the focus of the INGV. I spent some words about the INGV. The INGV is the National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology, and the main missions are seismological and volcanological research. But in the last 20 years, the research activity of the INGV is moved towards environmental topics, such as georesources evaluation and characterization. And in this framework, currently, INGV is driving a project on raw and critical materials, national or international project, and also in indirect way. I explain better. The main topic of the INGV is also the characterization of hydrothermal and geothermal fluids. And geothermal fluids can be powerful raw and critical materials resource. In fact, geothermal fluids is an unconventional lithium resource. So in this framework, currently, INGV is strongly involved in this topic.
Thank you. So, David, please, let's stay with this topic. So, to have now an European perspective. So, have the geologists in general and the European Federation of Geologists a role in identifying and securing these critical materials for Europe?
Geologists has a very critical role on this, and especially in this phase, in the initial phase. That is the phase in which we have to identify and secure our resources. Geologists has the tools, because we are different countries, and different countries has different way to assess their resources. Geologists, through their tools, so their instrument like the United Nations Resources Framework or the PERC, Pan-European Mining Code, as the tools to try to estimate the resources in the different countries in a common way, so that we can really compare experience and compare this material, the presence of this material, one country to the other. This point of standardization is a very relevant point for the collaboration among different countries in order to have a common language. This is one point. The other point is about the knowledge transfer. As a continent, Europe, different countries has different experiences, and also the mining and raw material industry is not developed in the same way in the different countries. So as European Federation of Geologists, one of the role that I see and that we will have is in knowledge transfer, one country to the other, and also within a country, one community to the other. And I think these two are some of the important role and activities that EFG will have in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your answer. So, Glenn, we know that raw materials and critical raw materials don't represent the only relevant challenge. So, especially since what started in February 2022 in Ukraine, energy reached the top of the European Union agenda. So geology is obviously a fundamental tool for energy transition, and actually there's an element that can be used, and you have a quite experience in this field, so the hydrogen. So I'd like to ask you what geologists and the European Federation of Geologists have done and are currently doing to take on these challenges using hydrogen. Thank you.
It's a remarkable story because at the moment there's an assumption that the green hydrogen that is going to fuel Europe within a generation, that it will be produced primarily through electrolyzers, so a big engineering solution. But geologists have a unique story here to tell because there is a thing that is known as gold hydrogen. And this is the fact that hydrogen is being produced by the Earth. There's a quirky thing about this in the fact that mining never looked for it, yet they might be in the rocks where it's being produced. Oil and gas explorers never measured for it and were probably in the wrong rocks. So in a way we've been blind to geological hydrogen. But there's now a great deal of research which has shown that there are seepages of naturally occurring hydrogen which are coming out of the ground. We know the features to look for. And now there's a rush to go and try and find out the quantities in particular. What are we looking at here? Because this could be a game changer. A major part of this as well is the cost. So these electrolyzers are being touted at around about $8 or $10 per kilo of hydrogen. There is one producing field in Mali of natural hydrogen, and it's producing at around about $1. The estimates are between half $1 and $2 per kilo. So absolutely nothing compare with the electrolyzer solution or the other methods that are being proposed. So the big challenge for us now is to try and work out the quantities we have. If they're relatively small, they could be useful. If they are as big as we think they might be at the top end, this could really dramatically change the picture in terms of hydrogen supply, particularly as the engineers are now finding ways of transporting hydrogen safely and efficiently. What are we doing at AFG? Well, we're focused on it, looking to see if we can get an EU project funding. We were a founding member of EarthH2, which is a new industrial alliance, which is looking at this, that contains many of the major players, and we help shape the European strategy. So exciting times. It's not often when you get something completely new, which it could be a whole sector by itself, but there we go. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I hope we have some good news to tell about it soon.
Thank you. That was really, really interesting. So, Monia, I'm going to end this interview with your last question. So, as you said before, INGV has a focus on geothermal energy. So, I'd like to ask you, what is INGV in particular doing to face the energy transition challenges, taking into consideration what you said, so that the INGV represents a scientific reference for the exploitation of this source, of this third source. Please.
We think that geothermal energy could be a relevant choice for the energy transition, not alone, but together with other renewables, and could be a potential powerful resource, especially in particular environment, such as small islands in Mediterranean Sea or in Tyrrhenian Sea. And the ENGV activity focus in this moment in two big projects in southern Italy, in Sicily, in Aeolian Islands and in Pantelleria Island, to identify and identify the geothermal resource, characterization of the geothermal resource, and evaluation of the geothermal potential of the resource, and identify the potential use of this resource. Also for direct uses, this means power generation, and also for direct thermal uses. And ENGV is driving also another big project on central and northern Italy to characterize in detail the geochemical properties of the geothermal fluids. And the focus is also on raw materials and conventional raw materials resources. And all these projects are followed also by dissemination activity to increase the awareness with respect to geothermal energy, dissemination activity in the schools with the citizens, and to increase the knowledge respect the geothermal energy, and to highlight the big role of the geothermal energy in the energy transition.
Thank you very much. So just to end, David, we can say that there is a link between the work of the European Federation of Geologists and what actually INGV is carrying on. So they are obviously different projects, but they have similar aims. Do you agree?
Sure, I agree. I think not only with INGV, but there are many different stakeholders across Europe which EFG should engage. And this is part of the strategy of the next 2 years. We will try to engage all these different stakeholders, starting from ENGV, but also with others, and try to build a community not only of individuals, but also engaging the different industry stakeholders in what is a common European strategy for geosciences.
Thank you. So now I'm going to end this episode, and actually we'll wait for the next episode where these topics that David just told us are going to be carried out deeply. So thank you for being here tonight, and see you at the next episode of Planet Earth.
Thank you.